Hello and welcome to Made It in the States, the #1 resource for finding and supporting American-made products. My name is Ben Newman and I'm your host. We will be telling the stories of companies producing products here domestically. We truly believe that there is a knowledge gap issue. There are plenty of companies that are producing products right here in America. However, it is too challenging for the everyday consumer to find and support those businesses. We are here to change that. Every week, we will be talking to a new owner or CEO and learning about their story, their struggles, their triumphs, and why they are continuing to produce products right here in the United States. We are so incredibly excited to have you along for this journey. If you enjoy the podcast, please like and subscribe, as well as leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. On today's episode, we're talking to Michael of Rogue Industries. We are going to learn about how Rogue Industries started after Michael went to the doctor and his doctor told him some feedback about what was going on with his back. We're also going to learn about the challenges that Rogue Industries and Michael had building out their American-made supply chain. Let's jump in and talk to Michael. All right, today we are joined by Michael Lyons of Rogue Industries. He is the founder, and we are going to hear the story of Rogue Industries and Michael. Michael, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate the time.
Absolutely. Let's just jump right in. Tell us a little bit about your background prior to where you are today, and how you got here.
Sure thing. My background is actually in marketing research, where we look at trends and analyze new products and look at opportunities. So that's really what my training was in. And then after I went through a corporate program, I decided that I wanted to buy my own business. So I bought, ironically, a publishing house, a small legal publishing company called Tower Publishing. And we ran that and still continue to run that. And it did very well for us. But along the way, I had a significant lower back injury that literally put me on the floor one afternoon. I mean, it was that bad. So I went to the doc and I said, "Hey, do I need surgery? What in the world is going on here? Is it a slip disc?" And he said, "Can you show me your wallet?" And I said, well, I can, but I'm going to pay you. What are you worried about? And he goes, "No, I'm not kidding you. I really want to see your wallet." And I pulled it out, and it was a little bit embarrassing, where it was really a little bit too thick. It was a rear pocket wallet. And he said, "If you were a young man, this would not cause a problem most likely. But when you've had that wallet in your back pocket for 30 years, it's going to cause complications with your spine." So I accepted his advice and removed the wallet. And within 2 weeks, my back was feeling demonstrably better. So that's how things got started. From there, I started looking at what wallets I could use in my front pocket, and they were all square or rectangular.
Yeah.
None of them felt comfortable. So I took one of our old books, cut it up into pieces, and shaped a wallet out of it, because I was doing the laundry and the pants had gone inside out, and I noticed that the pocket is actually curved.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, how about if we design a wallet which matches the contour of the pants pocket? Bingo. I built a prototype, took it into my doc, and he said, "Lyons, whatever you are doing, stop it. Build this thing, make this." And he said, "A lot of people will thank you if you do that." So that was the genesis on how the program got started.
I love that. It is like so many of the stories we hear, you have that aha moment. And it's one that when you replay it back in your mind, it's like, why wouldn't you just build a wallet that fits the shape of the pocket it's going in? It's one of those simple things that nobody had put together in a way that was that was scalable or made sense, and you did that. I want to jump back a little bit, Michael, and understand your background prior to Rogue Industries. Um, you talked about you had your corporate career, and then you ended up buying a business in the publishing world, which is we were just talking prior to this. That's the industry my wife is in. So um, curious to learn. Had you always had a passion for entrepreneurship? Buying a business is something that I think some people have heard of. It's definitely getting more and more common. How did you make that decision to jump from corporate world to buying a publishing business?
The corporate world, and this was GTE Sylvania, so it was a large corporation. I was involved with an electronic division called Control Devices, and they were very innovative. We had some great scientists, some great engineers. So we had a lot of interesting programs that we could work on. As time went on, however, the direction of the company changed. They started getting rid of a lot of the engineering resources, outsourcing that, and that happens. Companies make strategic moves and they change positions, and I just decided, all right, this has been a good run. This has been really a great experience curve, and I've enjoyed it. But I've always wanted to have my own shop.
Yeah.
And that's when I started looking around at businesses, and I just have a natural affinity for the publishing world. And that's when Tower Publishing became available, I said, "Boy, this is a great potential fit." So I jumped in. But as an entrepreneur, you go from corporate where you're getting paid every 2 weeks and you've got your stock options and your health insurance and all that, and you jump into a brand new venture, and suddenly you have to worry about things like cash flow,
Mhm.
profitability, employee sat. It's a whole different mix being an entrepreneur. You have to have the ability, I really think, where you can drill down into a lot of different areas. I mean, you really lose the capability of you're going to be a super specialist.
Yeah.
You have to be able to handle a whole myriad of projects as they come along, whether it be the new product design, whether it be the equipment, whether it be the customer. So you just have to be comfortable saying, I'm going to be wearing about 7 hats today.
Absolutely. And you never know what hat you're going to be wearing when you wake
Right,
up that day.
right.
Lots of uncertainty there, but definitely something that a lot of people itch for, and you've been able to do it. Do you guys still own Tower Publishing? Is that still something that you guys do?
We certainly do. Tower Publishing is actually what funded the startup of Rogue Industries.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit more now about Rogue Industries. So you have this moment, you're doing laundry, you see the shape of the pocket of the jean, and you're like, why don't we just make a wallet that fits the curve, sits in there nicely, and isn't this big bulge that is going to be sticking out the side of your pants, or if you put it in your back pocket, going to be impacting your health and ability to move. What was the next step? You showed it to your doctor. He was like, "Do it." As an entrepreneur, I'm sure you had a million things spinning in your head on where you could take this, how you would scale it. But what did you tactically do next? Was it sitting on it for a little bit longer? Did you go and get more feedback from people? What did you do after that conversation with your doctor?
The first thing I started on was the IP arena, taking a look at how do we protect the idea within the intellectual property spectrum, because I knew if this thing worked, people would start knocking us off. So the first thing we did is we said, let's go down that path and put some things in place to get the intellectual property secured. Directly behind that, the next step was, how do we prototype it? Because we're a publishing house. We're used to books and paper.
Exactly.
Leather is, I had a pony as a kid and I liked the harness and the saddle, but I didn't have the skill set on how do you make this stuff. So we went out to 4 different places to create prototypes for us. And every one of them came back, and I said, I don't want us to put our name on this product. This looks like it was a kindergarten project. This is not what we want if we're going to build a business. And then I was talking to a cobbler who repairs shoes here in Westbrook, Maine, and he said, I know a place where they used to make shoes and now they make other leather things. And he gave me a name, and I met with them, and they were remarkable. They were like, yeah, we can make this. The challenge was when I met with their lead stitcher, she took a look at the design and she said, well, this is really novel, but I don't think it's manufacturable. And I was like, uh-oh. And we worked our way through it, and we figured out, yes, it's difficult to make because it's curved, but it obviously can be made. So the trick at the beginning was finding a company that I felt they were making the quality at the level that we needed.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people would have, a lot of people who have that idea, an idea for a new product, they go to one manufacturer maybe, or have one conversation with someone and it doesn't go the way they were wanting. And then maybe they have another one. And if it still doesn't go the way they are wanting the quality, or maybe someone says it can't be done, a lot of people just give up. And I think your background as an entrepreneur, that mindset of like, no, look, I'm not going to give up. Someone can do this. I just got to find the right partner is a lesson for anybody who has an idea for a product. Don't give up when it gets hard on the first go around. Keep powering through. Sometimes you got to get through the first couple of no's, or this isn't going to work until you can see some success there. Michael, what was the timeline like from initial? You have back pain, and you realize you need a new wallet, to your first prototype, and then after that to the first publicly available model.
The prototype was fairly quick because I was making mock-ups out of paper. So
Okay.
let's do that. Moving into the leather was a longer process. So it actually took us a couple of years
Wow.
because we had companies that told us they could do it. And then whether they just dropped the ball or it wasn't a big priority, or the fact that we weren't an established company. We're a startup. So you don't get the same recognition factor that way. So it was a slow start to get things going. But once we had the prototype, that's when we knew we were onto something, because when it was made the way we wanted it to be and people saw it, they were like, okay, I get this. I want one. And by the way, I want one for my brother-in-law too. So what we did is we ran a very small press release in a local paper here in Maine.
Okay.
And I was astounded. The editor graciously picked it up, did a small story on us, and we sold like 200 units.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was thinking, wow, it must just be my friends that are calling up. And then I said, I don't have that many friends. So, so we came to the realization these were people that were just interested in the concept of what we were doing.
Hmm.
So from there, Ben, we started going out to potential wholesale companies, big
Okay.
businesses that could say, hey, let's put this on our retail shelves. Let's put it in our catalog.
Yeah.
I reached out to, I think it was 22 significant catalog houses. And guess what they said? Not interested. They said that is a novel design, but it's too unique for us. And I just got, they were polite, but
Yeah.
there was no, no, and no. And then I contacted the Vermont Country Store,
Yep.
and the president of the Vermont Country Store saw the design, and he said, I don't like it. I love it. He said, I want this. And he was our first wholesale account, and that was back in 2007, and we still do business with them.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So let's zoom out a little bit. I think the story is incredibly fascinating. So just give us the bigger timeline. So 2007 is when you guys got your first big wholesale order
Right.
partnership with Vermont Country Store, which I think many people from this podcast will be familiar with. They're a great brand and carry so many cool products. When did you first think of the idea, and then are there any other big milestones between 2007 and now that you can kind of fill in and give people an idea of kind of where the business has been?
We started off as a one product company. We had front pocket a single front pocket wallet.
Yeah.
That was it. And as we started getting traction, the customers were saying, "Hey, can you guys make a tote bag? Can you make a belt?" And we started getting all kinds of interest. So, now we have upwards of 200 SKUs, 200
Wow.
stock keeping units, where we really were running into a situation where it was pretty clear the customers were somewhat fanatical, honestly, about what we were doing, and they wanted us to do more things. So we had to kind of pick and choose as far as what we're going to add to that. Now what's happened is the company has taken off to the point where it's bigger than the publishing company that started it. So it's sort of an ironic twist, but it's all good. It's working.
I love it. It's such a cool way that you're able to fund the start of this startup, Rogue Industries, through the publishing company, and then to see it overtaken. I'm sure there has to be such a level of joy on your end, and just seeing what you've been able to build. Michael, can you give us an idea of just the size of Rogue Industries? So you said 200 products. How many employees do you guys have? And then where are you located? I believe you're up in Maine. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. We're in Standish, Maine, so we're about 45 minutes outside of Portland.
Okay.
We're actually in an old farmhouse. We're on about 14 acres. There's a nice workshop on the property. The old farmhouse has been converted for office space. But we're a small company. I've got a team of 9 people, but very creative, very talented. So we are a small operation, but we have the capability of making some really special products.
I love it. And now, Michael, are you guys primarily selling direct to consumer? Do you guys still do a lot of your business through wholesale accounts? Hopefully, some of those maybe bigger accounts that said no initially said, "Oh gosh, this is something we want to be a part of." What does that look like now? How do you get in front of customers?
We're very fortunate. We are enjoying a lot of work with LL Bean,
Mhm.
with Hammaker Schlemmer. So we're actually now in just over 500 wholesale outlets. So there's a good deal of distribution that's out there across the board, but well over half of our business is direct through our website now.
Wow.
I never would have believed it could become that with the web portal, but that's where just over half the business is now.
And it sounds like some of that probably goes into the fanatical nature of your customers and just loving not only the product but Rogue Industries and saying, "Look, you have a wallet. I want to get the belt. I want to have a tote bag," and falling in love with the brand and the quality that you guys stand for, and coming back for many different products, no matter what they initially started with.
That's exactly right. And what we do is we have an unconditional 2-year warranty where most people, you buy a leather good, it's going to be warranted for 30 days or something.
Yeah.
And we tell the customer, no, use your judgment. If there's any problem with this, we want to hear about it. We want to know, how do we make it better? How do we take care of you? And when they call up here, there's actually a person they can talk to. So it's a small family team where uh, there's a lot of places where you call and you just can't talk to someone anymore. Here, you can have a conversation.
I love that. It's one of the common themes that we've heard is we've gone out and talked to consumers. It's the phone maze of, well, press one and you can maybe talk to someone, and now okay, well, press the secret dial number and we'll connect you to someone's voicemail, and they may or may not call you back in the next 6 to 8 months. What people love is real human connection, and being able to talk to someone and resolve an issue quickly. And it sounds like you guys are doing that. And I love the guarantee. You guys are standing behind the product and saying, look, if you have a problem with it, come back and we'll take care of it for you. Michael, I'm assuming, kind of as with your origin story, you guys are not actually manufacturing these products on the farm that you guys have up in Maine. Am I correct in that, or are you guys manufacturing a lot of the products yourself?
It probably would have been a smarter move if we did not manufacture the product.
Okay.
But when we launched, we had some great subcontractors and we worked through them. And we still work through them. But I think it was 2015, 10 years ago. At that point, we said, we don't want to just do the design work. We don't want to just do the advertising and the marketing. We actually want to make this stuff. So that's why we bought the property that I'm sitting in now that has a workshop. And with that, we started buying the equipment. We started hiring people, and none of us honestly knew how to do this. It's a whole new area, you know, and it has been a very steep learning curve in terms of how do you get the equipment to work the way it's supposed to, which piece of equipment do you need for a certain type of leather, but we've done it. We've done it, and what's really cool is you bring a customer up here now and take them into the workshop and you show them what we're making. And at this point, we are making 80% of our product line right here in Standish.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Not
That
the whole line, but 80% of it. Yeah.
and that's with those. Do those 9 employees include?
Correct.
Wow, that is you guys. I can only imagine. That is a steep learning curve. Is from the stories that we've heard, I can only imagine some of the stories that you have as you brought that manufacturing in house and learned through. I'm assuming a little bit of trial and error, how to get stuff done
Yeah.
and build a quality product, because you at the end of the day, you have to have a quality product. You built this reputation of having such a quality product, and bringing it in house, you had to make sure that you could continue to do that. Michael, looking at the past, what, almost 15 years now, a little bit longer, what are some of the biggest challenges you've had? Those moments in Rogue Industries growth where you didn't know if you were going to be able to overcome it, and those moments where it was really a head scratcher, and it was a challenging time. Could you share one or two examples of those that you've had with Rogue Industries?
Sure thing. One of the biggest challenges is we were asked to make some highly customized belts, and the goal was to not only make them, but to find every single component made here in the US. So that means the thread, that means the actual belting material, that means the leather. So when you go through that and you end up with 10 components and then finding sources that can do it, it sounds like that's not that big a project. That's not that hard to do. But for every single component we I had to reach out to between 8 and 10 potential suppliers to find out who could really do it. Because in many cases, the larger they were, the lower the probability that they were making stuff here. So
Absolutely.
that was a definite sourcing challenge more than a technical stitching challenge. It was a sourcing challenge to be able to find the right people. It was a fun project, but it was a big undertaking. As far as some of the biggest challenges we've had, we started dancing with people that put the products on television shows. And we had built up some pretty substantial inventory there. And halfway through, they decided to switch gears. And as a small supplier, that was a really difficult lesson. So we're a bit more careful. We're a bit more judicious in how much inventory we'll build for people. We'll parse it out more slowly and make sure it's stuff that they really want rather than they think they want and then they change their mind.
Absolutely. We've heard from at least three or four guests that, over inventorying themselves has almost led to their demise, especially some of these small manufacturers. They think they get this promise of a big order, and so they build up all this inventory, and then for whatever reason it falls through.
Yeah.
And then they're left sitting with, in some cases, millions of dollars worth of inventory, and it can be a challenge. Flipping gears, Michael, what are one or two of those moments, throughout Rogue Industries that have just motivated you? Everybody has one or two of them, right? Where it's what you look back on in those challenging times, and you're like, this is why I do what I do, and why I'm continuing to build this fantastic business of Rogue Industries. Could you share a couple of those success or highlight moments that you have?
Yeah, one of the fun part here, it's not can we make payroll, it's not dealing with the bank, it's not taking care of the taxes. It's when you sit down with a customer and you're able to brainstorm on building a whole new design for them, where they're like, we know that you know what you're doing in the leather world. So here's our objective. How can we do it? And it's a back and forth as far as, yeah, we can do it this way and it's going to work. That way is going to be more and more difficult, but there's some real chemistry there when you're able to collaborate and you're able to say, let's develop a new product, a new platform with some give and take back and forth. That's when it's fun. That's when it really clicks and it's like, yeah, this is cool stuff. Or when you have a customer, they get our product and they're not just like a little bit impressed with it. They are remarkably impressed and they let us know. And that's a cool thing and a powerful thing to be able to share with the team here too.
Absolutely. The hearing from customers is always motivating, and being able to see the true impact that you're having. Michael, you started off with one product. You designed it yourself. First prototype was out of paper. It took a couple of years to find the right manufacturer to help you make it. You now have, it sounds like, hundreds of products that you guys are producing. What was the evolution of designing these products? You talked about one of your favorite parts is working with customers and creating a new product design that is going to connect with your consumers and your customers. What does that look like now? You said you do it all in house. Do you have a team? How do you come up with new ideas? And then how do you test, validate, and make sure it's something that customers are going to connect with?
Sure. We do a reach out to our customers and we ask them, what would you like to see next? Because we've got limited bandwidth. We can't do we can't do everything that we want to do. So let's find out what direction they would like us to lean into. So we start with information from them, and then internally we'll do our own design work and say, all right, let's make this happen. They think a passport case is something they want for traveling. Let's do that. Let's make the best one that's out there.
I love it. I love it. Asking the simple question of what would you like,
Yeah,
uh, sometimes is the best way to go about it. So 15 years, 15 plus years, have gone through for Rogue Industries. You guys are, it sounds like, continuing to grow, continuing to develop new products, and just create stellar high quality, goods. What's next? Is there anything that's keeping you up in a good way of like, hey, I so excited that this is the next phase of Rogue Industries, um, or how do you see the growth continuing there?
Yeah, we're trying to. This sounds counterintuitive, but we're trying to do less. In that, once you become an inventor and you start coming up with ideas, uh, it sometimes is difficult to turn that spigot off. And these can be very, from my frugal Yankee budget mindset, these can be very expensive things. So we're trying to be a little more selective in other projects that we're taking on. Within the leather goods world, okay, we can do that. That's not going to be something that breaks the bank. But I've got a project right now that I've been working on where you take a snow scoop, which was actually invented here in Maine years ago, and I've designed one so that rather than lifting it and wrecking your back, there's a step function where you just press down on it and it throws the snow for you. And it really works. And we've got some major companies that are now interested in that. It has nothing to do with publishing. It has nothing to do with the leather goods business, but it's all part of who we are and what we do. And we've taken a look at that and we've said, you know what? We do not want to start a third company. We've got two going. We're pretty darn busy as it is. So let's kind of dial that one back a little bit and see if we can partner with someone else and move forward by having someone with that's in that line of business take a project like that on. So we are starting to finally become a little more selective in some of these tangential areas, but it's fun. That's what's neat to have the creativity here where we can test these things.
I can see it just in how you lit up when I asked you. You totally have the bug for it, and I can tell the ideas are always spinning in your head. But it's I think a good lesson for people out there, no matter if they're running their own business or they have all these ideas, or just in your personal life. Um, sometimes you have to work with the right people and do it the smart way instead of trying to overload your own system, because you're going to be able to accomplish more if you go find the right partner, and they're able to help you create this and put it out to market. In the same way that finding the right leather manufacturer way back at the beginning of Rogue Industries was so important, right? If you didn't find that right partner, who knows where you would have been in with Rogue Industries. It may have turned into something completely different. So I think it's a great lesson for people to learn. Any comment on that?
I think that Rogue Industries could have gotten derailed very easily a half dozen times, especially in the infancy. I
Mm-hmm.
think in the early stages, you really need to hover, you need to focus, and you really need to say, we're going to stay with it. Because if you don't have the tenacity for that, things will inevitably go wrong, especially in the beginning. So you've got to be able to kind of bowl through those and say, okay, that first prototype it didn't hit the mark. Now, if you do this and you find out that you're on the fifth or sixth prototype and it still isn't hitting the mark, maybe there's a different signal there. But all I'm saying is that going into any kind of a new venture, you really have to expect that there are going to be challenges. It's just part of the territory.
For sure, it's life, it's business, it's part of the fun as well. I think in a lot of ways, Michael, this podcast is about businesses that are making products here in America. Everybody has a different reason why they make products here. A lot of the reasons we've heard are, look, we want the highest quality. We want to be able to control the quality, and we want to know that it's made well. Others are, because there's a rich history of manufacturing, they want to continue on that legacy. What was the foundation? What is the foundation for Rogue Industries, and in wanting to produce products here domestically? When you first went out and found and looked at some of those manufacturers, were everybody was everybody domestically manufacturing leather goods, or did it just kind of become happenstance that this recommendation from a local cobbler uh, was a domestic manufacturer?
When we took a look at what we could do, we were quickly realizing that we could prototype in-house much, much faster. And we could go through 3 or 4 iterations in the time frame that if you go to an outside company, what it's going to take for them to turn one item around. So we could go up that curve much faster and be able to come to the final product quicker than if we were going through the normal process of designing it, sending it out, letting someone else build it. So having the ability to prototype was as important to us as actually doing the manufacturing.
Yeah, that's a great point. Your design cycle cuts down significantly.
Bingo. Bingo. Yeah.
You're able to be first to market when you have a new idea, and I'm jumping and guessing a little bit here, but I would assume it would allow you to do some smaller batch things as well and test with different things in a live environment with your customers, and not have to make these massive minimum order quantities.
Right.
And if something you think that's going to perform great starts not performing great, it's probably a lot easier to roll it back and stop producing the product, and you can minimize any potential loss there, and then also ramp up if something that you didn't expect to take off kind of takes off, and you're in full control of this cycle, and of the production process.
That's an interesting point because we were testing a new leather. It's actually made from a salmon from fish.
Wow.
And okay, I've seen alligator. I'm used to steer, moose leather, and now they've got fish leather. And we said that is something that we'd like to investigate. And come to find out, it's very thin and very strong. And doing that in house, we could prototype it and say, all right, will this work for the bags? Will this work for the wallets? And it was just something where if we were taking a new item like that and saying, oh, let's have someone else on the outside do all the prototype work, the cycle time would have been inordinately long. This way, we can very quickly do it, test it, and say, this is cool for this product line here. Let's put it in there.
I love that. I truly did not know fish leather was a thing. So right after the call, I'm going to go Google fish leather and get an idea of what it looks like.
Yes.
You, you bring
Go ahead.
You bring up a great point, though, Michael. You talk about the different types of leather, and there's lots. We've talked to a good number of leather companies or companies that produce leather products, and everybody uses a different type of leather. There, like you said, there is a lot of different types. There's bison leather. We've talked to a couple of people who produce that. Um, do you guys stick to one type of leather, or to your earlier point, is every product kind of a one-off, and you make the best decision for that product and durability and its use case?
Our top 2 leathers that we have are moose and bison.
Okay.
Those are the 2 most popular leathers which we have. And then we do a lot, obviously, in with steer or bovine. Uh, that's the most common leather, but there's a huge variation between one tannery and another, and that makes it interesting to find out how you get the consistent quality that you want.
And I'm going to ask a novice leather question here. So people who are into leather goods may understand this or may know the answer. What is if you look at, say, steer, bison, and moose leather, um, you know, do they all have different qualities? Are they all roughly the same? Like, is moose leather better for different things? Just try to get an understanding, and I think people would be interested to know, Like what is the difference between those? It's hard to understand as a consumer.
Sure, sure. From a distance, when you looked at it, you might not be able to tell that there's really a discernible difference with the different leathers, but there is when you start working with it. And for us, the moose is something where it's a wild animal, and these are harvested in Canada. They're brought down to the States where they're tanned, and then we turn them into leather goods. But these are animals that are out in the woods. So those hides come in and they are scratched up. I mean,
Yeah.
they've been out there in the wild. So this isn't something that is going to be a big, beautiful piece of leather that you would see a sofa made out of. This is going to be something where, well, we can pick and choose on that hide, find a piece and use that for a relatively small item like a wallet. Now, when you get the bison, that's such a big animal, and those are for the most part they're raised in huge pastures now. They're not going to be marked up the same way, so you can get a much more consistent hide out of that, and then you can say, let's take that leather and make a tote that uses a lot of leather for it. So
Absolutely.
that's the difference. Yep.
Yeah, I never would have guessed that. So appreciate you sharing that and
Sure.
giving us an insight into the different types of leather. Well, Michael, so many interesting things about Rogue Industries. Are you guys are you guys planning? Um, and I'm trying to get this out here. Do you guys have? Are you guys all focused on men's products, or do you get into women's wallets, or are you solely focused on men's wallets and men's products?
That's a good question. We are too focused on just the men's market. That's what we started out with. That's what we that's been our heritage, and that's what we're known for. But I had a meeting this morning with a designer in the women's line, and we're looking at ways to collaborate and add some color and splash and make it more interesting. Uh, so our plan is we really want to have it where we make the product that the men need, but then we also branch out more aggressively. We have some women's offerings now, but we need to up our game in that area.
Well, I'm sure people will be excited to see what you continue to create there. If they're anything like the men's products, the quality and the design is going to be bar none. Michael, as we begin to wrap up here, a lot of the businesses we talk to, specifically, purpose, mission focused businesses, have a give back or they support their community in a unique way. Is that something that you guys do at Rogue Industries? Do you do any type of community give back?
We do. Uh, as a small company, we don't have the budgets that a lot of bigger places do. But our philosophy is if we can give a little bit, and if a lot of other small companies can do the same thing, that's when it begins to make a huge difference. So that's how we try to look at it, and then selectively get behind programs. We're not in the political arena where we're making donations at that level. We look at things that are much simpler from a simpler context where, all right, if you've got a country that's at war and they need some help, yeah, what can we do to help them? Uh, if we've got an area where there's a food shelter that needs some help, guess what? We can do that. The other thing that we do a lot of is with the fundraisers, especially here in Maine that are going on, lots of times they will want product that we can donate, and then they can have that at an auction and create some revenue from that basis. So you might have an item where maybe it retails for 50, and you get people at an auction that want it, and someone just bought it for $100,
I've been there before. You get in the moment, and it says retail value of $30 or $300, and you're like, I don't care what it is, I'm winning this thing. If I double, if I triple pay, I am winning this sucker.
It's good. That's right.
Whoever created silent auctions is a fundraising
Oh boy.
gimmick. They were brilliant because you get
Yeah.
some competitive people in there, and it's game over for sure. Well, Michael, as we wrap up here, we like to ask the same final question to everybody, every one of our guests. Um, Made in America is what this podcast is about. You clearly love Rogue Industry Products, as the first product was designed from an issue that you were having. However, are there any other Made in America products that you love and use on a daily, weekly, monthly basis that you want to call out here?
I would. There's a company. They don't make leather goods. I wish they did, but there's a company that's called Thomas Mosier,
Mm.
and they're in the woodworking business. And this company was founded by. He was a college professor, and he came home and he told his wife, you know, I like what I'm doing, but it just isn't my passion. And she really encouraged him. She said, it's time to pivot. If this isn't what you want to do, you don't want to do what you sort of like for the next 30 years. So he
Exactly.
ended up making a woodworking company where it is absolutely world class. The products that they make, um, and that's a neat heritage story to see where they started from nothing. They really struggled, but the product which they make is something that it'll go from generation to generation.
Absolutely. Those heirloom pieces, I think, don't get enough attention. My wife and I bought a dining room table, and we decided to go with, an heirloom quality dining room table that'll be around for hopefully a lot longer than we are. Partly because it's heavy as heck and a pain to move. I don't want to deal with it. But really cool. Thomas Mosier. We'll have to check them out, and we'll link them in the description as well, so people can go take a look at their products. Michael, before we sign off here, I want to give you one more opportunity. Anything you want to say about your story, the Rogue Industry story, and what you guys are building? Such a cool brand. Just want to give you an opportunity to say anything else.
I appreciate that. The fact of the matter is, what we built isn't just from the idea that I came up with. It's the collaboration of uh, my son coming on board, my life partner, Marianne. Without their support, this would not have been able to come about because there's a lot that goes into it. You look at the product and you think, oh, that's a fairly simple thing. But the steps involved to get there, that's where you really need people behind you that say, yeah, we can lean in and make this happen. Let's have some fun with it. So
Absolutely.
I guess my advice would be, it doesn't have to be a perfect day every day. It's not going to be. But if you've got something going where it's really a troubling place and you don't even want to be there, you reach a point where you say, is this what I want to do long term? I can tell that you're enjoying doing what you're doing right now. That's great. That spark. You want to find where that spark is, just like Thomas Mosier found, and then say, all right, that's really the American way. Let's dare to dream and grab a hold of it.
Michael, I'm not going to say anything else because I think that is the perfect way to end the podcast. It is great advice for anyone listening, anyone building, and anyone trying to figure out what's next in their life and their role and in their career. It's been such a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it.